All right, in this next episode here, we're going to be talking about a little bit of technical parts of screenwriting and just kind of getting started. So first of all, let's talk about software options for screenwriting. Now, first of all, you don't want to use some people try to use like Microsoft Word or some sort of word processor to write. Don't ever do that when there are actually some free options out there. And one in particular right here is this writerduet.com. If you go to their website, you can do a login and you can keep all of your scripts on the cloud, on their server, and write for free. Their account is free and you can pretty much use it as much as you want. They also have a donate thing, so if you use it and you find that it's helpful, then you should probably donate to them. The nice thing about writerduet.com, it also exports out your script in various formats. It'll export it out to Final Draft and Celtix formats, which are some of the more popular screenwriting software that's out there. Celtix.com is also free to a degree. You can go on their website and you can actually write on the cloud as well for free and keep it on their server for free as well. But when it comes time to do a script breakdown, do a production, you have to pay for the service. And I believe that's called a Celtix Studio. Final Draft is the industry standard for screenwriting. They're using Hollywood and television writing. And Final Draft exports out to a couple of important formats. It's compatible with Movie Magic. If you're doing budgeting and scheduling inside of Movie Magic, Final Draft, you can get it to what's called an SEX, a script exchange format to use in Movie Magic for budgeting and scheduling a large-scale production. And Final Draft is now a subscription-based software. You have to basically pay yearly for that, and it depends on if you are a student or a professor, or if you work for a university, or if you're just a regular consumer of their software, then they have different prices. And Celtix also has a desktop software. It's kind of hard to locate these days. They've stopped supporting it. It's an earlier version of it, but it still works on Mac and PC, and it works quite well. And that's the one I'm going to be using to demonstrate technical screenwriting. And they also have an app for iPad, iPhone, and I believe for Android as well that you can download and use on your phone or tablets. So let's talk about what a script is and how scripts should be formatted here. What exactly is a script? Obviously, here as it says, a document that outlines every oral, visual, behavioral, and lingual element required to tell a story. And a script is not necessarily a movie script. That is what we call a screenplay. Scripts are usually called plays. Whether it's a teleplay, whether it is a screenplay, or a stage play. There are different types of plays, and those scripts basically are different from medium to medium. This is a version of a screenplay here. This is from American Werewolf in London, and you'll notice up here at the top we have various elements here. If you read through this, you can kind of, if you've seen the movie, you can see how this is written here, that this is very describing the movie to a T here. You basically read it, and if you've seen the movie, this you can picture it in your head as it's happening. So this is a version of a screenplay right here. Very typical. So as we mentioned, a screenplay is a script written for the screen. Then you have other types of plays, stage play, teleplay. Film is a visual medium. I emphasize that because when you're writing a script for the screenplay, just keep in mind you don't want to just tell your story through exposition and through dialogue necessarily. You want to show it. So when you have the opportunity to be visual, my general suggestion is make it visual. And dialogue is there to enhance the story. I often ask people who are going to be writing a story, going to be writing a screenplay, what makes a good story? What makes a good movie? What makes a good story? And there's various answers. People will say good character. Some people will say good dialogue. Some people will say good story structure. But what's at the center of all those things that makes a good story and makes a good story move is conflict. And not just conflict, but interesting conflict. Several writers, someone like Aaron Sorkin, screenwriter of A Few Good Men, Social Network, Moneyball, a whole bunch of really great stories, mentions that intention and obstacle basically make your story, will drive a story. That you don't necessarily base a story on theme, that the theme comes out of intention and obstacle, which is basically desire of a character to get something and something is getting in their way of receiving it. And then after that, after we get past the conflict, once you have a good central conflict, once you have a very interesting conflict, so what makes a good story besides conflict? Of course, you got to have a great protagonist and a great antagonist. And a protagonist basically is the hero of the story. It's the person whose story we're following. An antagonist is basically, you can look at that thing as the villain or the opposing force. It doesn't necessarily have to be a person. There are storylines that kind of follow man versus nature, those types of things. And the antagonist doesn't necessarily have to be a person. It can be an opposing force that's stopping the protagonist from getting what he or she wants, what he or she desires. One segment I'm going to suggest that you watch to kind of prove my point here is found on YouTube. Red Letter Media has produced some really good segments. They're very comedic. It's this guy that just like sounds like a complete idiot, but he's actually quite genius, if I can say, in the way he critiques. Why did the original episodes of Star Wars, A New Hope, Star Wars episodes 4 through 7? I asked a lot of people what makes those stories work. Why did those ones work so well? And then people watch the prequels, the episodes 1 through 3, and people don't like those as much as the original Star Wars, the episodes 4 through 6. For a while, I had the hardest time putting my finger on what made those stories work and what made some of those stories work and what made the prequels not work. And I think this guy kind of nails it. If you watch through, he's got the Star Wars Phantom Menace. If you look up Red Letter Media and watch his parts 1 through 7, it's about an hour and a half worth of material on the Phantom Menace. It talks about why the Phantom Menace didn't work. And one of the things that he brings up is he kind of claims that the Phantom Menace did not have a clear-cut protagonist, and you'll find a section in there he talks about having a clear-cut protagonist, which was basically missing from the original, which was missing from the Phantom Menace, and make that story not work. It's obvious in A New Hope that it was Luke Skywalker was a protagonist throughout that story. And also another thing he brings up is talking about interesting characters. Remember, having memorable and interesting characters with interesting quirks, and he kind of makes a comparison between the sets of characters between episodes 4 through 6 and episodes 1 through 3. So just go ahead and watch that when you get time. Warning, disclaimer: there's a lot of cursing and some nasty stuff in it, but it's actually really funny. But just don't watch it with your kids in the room. But it is quite enjoyable. The last little part here I kind of want to talk about, once you get a script written, what makes your script noticeable? The next episode I'm going to be doing is on actual script structure, and we're going to be talking about this. This is just kind of introducing to script writing here, to screenplay writing. What makes your script noticeable? Once your script is written, how do you get people to notice? So, there's a whole process you have to kind of follow where you can get an agent, and an agent will help to get pitch sessions opened up for you. But first of all, you got to get a literary agent. But a lot of scripts will have a hook or high concept or a log line, basically. Let's talk about log lines first of all. I'll talk about the difference between these. A log line, what makes a great log line? And I always bring up irony. Now, what is a log line? A log line is basically a one-sentence phrase that sells your entire movie. So that's kind of a good idea. If you have a good idea how you're going to sell that, and good log lines will have a sense of irony in them. Here is the original log line from Die Hard. A cop comes to L.A. to visit his estranged wife, and her office building is taken over by terrorists. What is the irony in the statement? The irony comes from the fact that this guy is coming all the way across the states to reconnect with his wife, and what's basically the worst thing that could happen that could stop him from patching things up with his wife? Well, her building is overtaken by terrorists. One of the worst things that could happen to a cop. So a sense of irony within the log line here from Die Hard. Let's move into the next one. A businessman falls in love with a hooker he hires to be his date for the weekend. Of course, this is from Pretty Woman. Where is the irony within this statement? Well, first of all, when somebody gets a hooker, that is basically supposed to be a one-night stand or a couple-hour stand, I guess you could say. But then he falls in love with this person, and hence lies the irony that somebody is falling in love with a prostitute. So you'll see that these log lines basically help sell the film. Once the script has been written and somebody's trying to sell this idea, this is an example of a log line. And sometimes log lines will actually be written before the scripts as well when somebody's trying to pitch ideas to be written by a studio. High concept. A high concept is a type of artistic work that can be easily pitched with a succinctly stated premise, basically contrasted with a low concept, which is more concerned with character development and other subtleties that aren't as easily summarized. And as it mentions here, the origin of the term is in dispute, basically because low concept isn't necessarily a knock against the films that are character-driven. A lot more character development. You look at something like Indiana Jones, Aliens, all these movies, Die Hard, they're all high-concept films. But once again, within a high concept here, a high concept is usually posed in this as a question. It's usually a run-on sentence that's a question, and usually it starts with the phrase "What if?" What if a character had this happen to him or her? We'll show some examples here, but the conflict once again is driven by a sense of irony. The protagonist's character flaw comes in direct by an adverse situation or a plot event. First of all, this is kind of a no-brainer here, but high concepts must be unique, must appeal to a wide audience, especially if you're selling this to like a Hollywood studio, and it can be said in one sentence and instantly you see the whole movie. So these are kind of some no-duh sorts of things here. Here's an example of a high concept. What if the washed-up actors from the crew of a canceled but still popular sci-fi TV show are pressed into a real war in space by aliens who think the TV show broadcasts they received were documentaries. And this is, of course, Galaxy Quest. But once again, a kind of a sense of irony, a run-on sentence in the form of a question here. And that is a high concept. And both of these are used usually when they're going to be a little bit more involved pitch sessions. High concepts are used over log lines. What if a lawyer whose profession is to lie for a living was suddenly struck with a curse where all he could do was tell the truth? This is liar, liar. And once again, there's the sense of irony that a lawyer who has to lie for a living is struck with a curse where all he can do is tell the truth. There's the sense of irony right there, smacking us in the face. So if you kind of want to do a little exercise on this, you can even think of some of the films that have been produced and you want to practice at writing log lines or high concepts. Try to remember that sense of irony and making them as interesting as possible. You can look at maybe some of these movies that are all high, most of these are high concepts here, that you could just take and try to create a log line, try to sell that movie, and just practice at it. Write a few log lines, write a few high concepts. If you're serious about writing, eventually you will have to do this to sell your scripts and to sell your ideas. In the next episode, we'll go over technical formatting for a screenplay. If you're interested in seeing the rest of my screenwriting modules that I'm doing right now, you can visit youtube.com/chinfat, and that'll take you to my page here. On my page, if you go under playlists, you'll find the screenwriting playlist, and you can click on that and look at the rest. Right now it says no videos because this is before I'm uploading. So yes, just go to the screenwriting playlist and you'll find all the modules that I keep putting on screenwriting there, and you can watch them all. So watch them all, subscribe, and other stuff. Thanks.